in here a little bit upset this morning.
Why is this?
So we have an office fantasy baseball league.
Yeah.
Most everyone. Maybe there's a couple guys out of the office. But so I was beating Les Bradford, who was also on our team, our CEO, 9-3.
Yeah.
It's a good week.
I mean, that's a pretty good week.
It's a great week.
Yeah.
Skunks are hard to come by. 9-3 is a big win.
Yeah.
So we have a minimum innings, 30 innings a week.
That's
you have to pitch. I'm sitting at 25. Well, what happens this week is I have a St. Louis Cardinal who COVID canceled a series, right?
Yeah.
And so he missed a start, but I'm watching. They're going to play, and I'm thinking, they're going to pick back up the rotation. Mm-hmm. He didn't pitch. They skipped his start. So I lose my minimum innings, and I just lost 5-7. I'm so mad at
5-7.
You got skunked 12-0.
I'm 12-0.
Did you not make your innings?
But I had 10-2 last week.
Yeah.
I crushed last week. No, everyone's sick.
COVID's taken so much from me.
Gosh,
right?
for
and
one,
it took baseball.
It's
and
a
I thought,
deleted
at least
season.
we have fantasy baseball. And it just took it from me.
No, it's not good. I think that the
Brutal.
parts that I don't like is the day-to-day business, like so-and-so is getting a test or so-and-so tested positive.
There's no way to know.
I mean, it's just crazy.
So I literally and nobody cares, right? I mean, nobody cares. But I texted our
nobody
commissioner
cares about
last night at 10 o'clock.
Can we add some more
and I was
players?
like, what are we doing? I was like, why do we have minimum innings when we can't manage our team? So first world problems, absolutely.
Yes.
Geek problems, 100%.
Yeah.
But that's my reality.
This is just
Struggling
say
with it, Jake.
COVID has messed with a lot.
That's
It's
right.
obviously
That's
messed
right.
with our fantasy baseball, which nobody cares. Your line is great. Nobody cares about your fantasy
That's
baseball
a truism about fantasy
except for
baseball.
you.
Nobody, you start
Yes.
talking about your lineup, and I'm thinking about what YouTube video I watched.
You're like, whatever.
Completely.
So, but let's do a little
table. This table.
I know,
Can't lean on.
man.
Did
I know.
COVID got this table?
We can't have nice things here.
I know. That's right.
Is crisis. I mean, COVID has brought about a season of crisis.
Yeah, definitely.
And we did a pivot here at YN360 in the magazine and just within our general communication to try to resource youth workers, to resource you in the area of crisis.
That's right.
And you wrote this great article.
Well, thank you. Did you read it? You've read it?
I thoroughly did.
Got you.
Thoroughly did? No, I know I did.
I did thoroughly.
Thoroughly
That's
did?
Anyway.
I was tongue-tied.
Split
'cause
infinitive.
Now I'm going to
Got
start
you.
sweating. But I will say your opening thing, talking about the president, like you were thinking back through the president. You had 3 points that...
Yeah, I read I read an article.
You put me on the
right
spot,
at
and I
did.
read
got
it.
you.
I read
got
it, though.
you. I read an article right at the beginning of COVID, right at the beginning, January, February, and it was really interesting. And it talked about how basically the summary is this: that you really don't know how you're going to perform in crisis until it happens.
Yeah,
it was
that's
looking
right.
at different presidents.
Oh, that's good.
Some that you would think would have performed well
Yeah.
historically and they had kind of strong personality, and they didn't. And
Yeah.
some that you wouldn't have thought they would that did great. And the point is, we really don't know.
No.
We really don't know what's going to happen to us until it hits the fan, and that's true in our personal lives, right?
But I like your line in here too, just talking about, I mean, at New Orleans they didn't do this, at Golden Gate they didn't, but the class talking about youth ministry in a pandemic,
It was
right?
a great class. I remember that class well.
Yeah, definitely not.
Wait a minute. We didn't have a youth ministry class in seminary on how to be a youth pastor in a pandemic. We're unprepared for it. And I think where we come from, this idea of crisis, narrowing our focus or how to lead, how to think strategically in crisis is that we are beginning to, I hate to even say this, right, but return. That's where we are. It's not March. It's the fall. We're returning back to normal.
Yeah.
That doesn't
You can even use the
know.
word, you know, because
I mean,
we want to say the new normal, but really it's just it's life. So
that's
maybe
right.
it is a normal. I don't know about you, but the conversations that we've been having around here and with youth workers is this concept of wanting to get back at normal, and it's just. I think it's defeating because every time, our church is opening back up and we're open for a couple of weeks, and I don't know about your church, but mine was shut down again.
That's right.
You know, and
That's
so
right. And
now
it's
we've
gonna
been
be
back
that
for
way,
2
I
weeks,
think.
and it's just this
Yeah, and I think there is some hope in this, that there will be a point. We will get to the other side of this.
Yeah.
And it may not be next month or 6 months from now. There'll be a point where we'll look
There
back.
will be a tomorrow.
That's right. But in the meantime,
Kind of.
can we learn from crisis?
That's right.
Or the better question is, I guess, what can we learn from crisis?
Yeah.
And you and I, talking through the article, I think there's a few things we can learn. And one is simply that crisis focuses our attention.
That's right.
And that's a great thing to grasp, right? Like in a crisis, you know this to be true. As you were thinking about your youth ministries in March and April, what did you do? You have to go, okay, how do we still communicate with students? What can we do? What can we keep? What can we change? A crisis doesn't allow you to really overlook anything.
No.
Maybe if you had a blind spot in your youth ministry before, you don't after crisis. And so I think the question that we can ask ourselves is, as we kind of, again, I hate to even say this, right? Like come out of this, the part of uncertainty about gathering, like what did you learn about yourself that you can keep? Like, what did you learn about your youth ministry when crisis focused your attention that you can keep and that you can build off of? And what, honestly, did you learn is just not going to work in this season? Yeah. So I think it focuses our attention you can't sleep. You can't skip, take a play off, right? You got to have your eye on the ball. Yeah. That was a lot of sports metaphors.
That was. At least you kept them kind of in the same sport. I did. But just this concept of focusing, like I think any time of crisis in my life, it makes the things that are most important become the most important very fast.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't help but to think in student ministry, not that anyone was just cruising along on a cruise ship, right? But this concept of as soon as crisis hit, all of a sudden we had to minister in such a way that we had to make the most important things the most important things. Yeah. And that's good and bad, right? Yeah. Like you couldn't hide behind the cool games and do 40-minute games. That's right. Because everyone's zoomed, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do, right? Which leads into this next one. And a crisis shines the spotlight on our weaknesses.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I mean, and listen, we were talking about this. Part of, I think, being a mature adult, a mature Christian is going, okay, I have weaknesses, right? Yes. We all have weaknesses. I don't think there's any expectation that any of us doesn't. And Correct. So hopefully you build a team, or in your marriage or your family, you surround yourself with people who can help you out there. But I do think one of the things we've seen as we talk to youth workers is that during this pandemic, our weaknesses were highlighted.
That's right.
Right. So maybe I go in, maybe I didn't know that I wasn't great at communicating with parents until you're now forced to communicate with them. The 1,000 changes in your youth ministry. And so, a crisis can highlight what our weaknesses are. And instead of running from that, I think one of the things we can do is say, okay, am I going to improve on this weakness? Yeah. It showed me that I have an area of deficiency. Am I going to try to build this and make it a strength, or am I just going to be like, oh, that's just who I am? And I think we would all want to say that, we're going to, if we know there's a weakness, let's do whatever we can to try to build
overcome
on that.
It. Yeah. I went to lunch with a youth worker. This is funny. My first lunch out after COVID, which you didn't know whether you take your mask off when you're sitting down or what, you just didn't know. Anyway, he's a small group leader, and so he's professional and then works in youth ministry. And I said, hey man, how's your small group going? Knowing that he does these D groups, and he just looks at me and he goes, Jake, they're horrible. Yeah. He goes, all this did was highlight the non-connection that I had with my students.
Boy, wow.
And he said, and I hate it because my wife is leading a group and they're having fun, they're on Zoom, they're texting. He goes, I don't even know how to talk to these guys. Yeah. And it just went to show that when I showed up in the room, it was just easy because we had to be there. But as soon as relationships started to become king, he's like, I didn't have one. Yeah. And I was like, man, that was so transparent. So that was...
Yeah, it is a moment of great conviction, right? I mean, nobody wants to discover their weaknesses,
That's
right? I mean, but I think, again, as mature believers and as people who are committed to being effective, I mean, we don't want to waste our time. We want to make sure that what we're doing with students matters.
That's right.
Let's use this as a way to build those weaknesses. I mean, I would hope that your friend was like, okay, I got to do some work. Right?
Yeah. That's funny. I haven't messaged him back about it. I mean, he had a baby, so his priorities are somewhere else. But right. Just with this, and I think you hit it, is you're either going to stay where you're at and say, oh, I have weaknesses, so be it, or from this moment forward, I'm going to serve my students, my parents, my church really well. Yeah. Which leads in this next one, or this final one. A crisis elevates the importance of our calling. This doesn't say our calling was not important to begin with.
Yeah, sure.
But we have this renewed sense of importance of the work that we do on the Lord's behalf.
Yeah, youth ministry is a lot of things, right? I mean, youth pastors wear many hats.
That's right.
It's one of the things that we remind ourselves around here as we serve youth workers. And there's different aspects of youth ministry. And I would say that are games important? Yeah, I think they are.
Of course.
I mean, I think games are great. And there's a lot of reasons to do games. And fellowship's important. And service projects and mission trips. And we're all those things. I think what happens in a crisis is a lot of that gets stripped away.
That's right.
Or we've seen, I guess, because it's a different kind of crisis. But in this pandemic, we've seen a lot of that get stripped away. And what's kind of still stayed there at the top. It's just the need to minister to our students, right? We're youth ministers. And we do a lot of things. Sometimes we're youth janitors, right? But
more often than not, unfortunately.
And that was never in your job description.
Nope.
But we're youth ministers, and I think you said it best. Life catches us off guard. Youth ministry is not a 9 to 5.
No.
Like, you'll have a kid call you at what'd you say? Like, why can't it ever just be like a Wednesday afternoon? Right?
I know. It's just, how come when your students are in some sort of sinful thing and they're convicted of it, it's never on Tuesday at 3 o'clock that they're like, hey, Jake, just wanted to connect with you about this issue. No, it's always like at 11:30 p.m. on a Friday night and you're on date night, right?
Or you've just gone to bed, you're like, worn out. And
you're like, come on, man, why is your sin keeping me up now,
That's right?
But so it catches us off guard, but you feel, I don't know about you, but in those moments when connecting with students and walking through a journey with them or right alongside of them, you feel a renewed sense of empowerment in your calling.
Purpose and meaning. Like,
I feel like that's what this season is doing, is because students are saying, man, there's so much chaos in this world. I need the certainty. And they know from that innate desire that God is the only one that can provide that. And we get to stand in the gap. And say,
so it's not that the other stuff isn't important during the year. It's that just in these moments, it just elevates our calling. So, again, somebody says, I've heard this a lot. But God doesn't waste a crisis. God doesn't waste and it's true. We have these moments where we find ourselves at our wits' end. But if we're intentional and if we're reflective and listen to the Lord, I think we can actually come out of this a lot stronger.
That's right. Hey, and with this one, just in closing, our team here at YM360 is honored to partner with you and serve relationally right alongside of you. We are here, you can call in, you can chat, you can email. Our team's ready to pray for you and to pray with you and to encourage you in this season. Just because there's a crisis doesn't mean that you don't have this amazing opportunity to lead your students right to the foot of the cross. And so thank you for what you do day in and day out. And Andy, good luck with your baseball team.
It's not looking good.
It's not.
Thank you, guys.
All right, see you later.